Oh, I was just reminiscing, man, as I'm sitting there listening to Give Me All Your Lovin', man, about this one time. Oh, it was one of the wildest, funnest little Halloween parties I ever threw in my life. In a beautiful little place, I think it was a Lions Club building. I rented it from the Lions Club in this tiny little town in Utah. But it's this building overlooking this quaint little lake. It's not a real big lake, a little tiny one, maybe what I would say. Let me look at it here from the past and see if I can remember it last. It's probably maybe 25, 50 acres large, so that gives you an idea, that's a fair chunk in land size. So it was a fair size, little kind of a kidney-shaped lake with little pathways around it, a little bridge over the middle of it, one of them little arch bridges where the lovers like to go, things like that. Kind of a quaint little town. Square-headed as all get up, but there were some rowdy folks living there, obviously, and a bunch more came from elsewhere, and we had a righteous party. And me and the little lady of the time came wearing caveman outfits. Oh, we about drove everybody crazy, man. Especially her, You can imagine, this was her and her hot chick replication way back when. We were like probably still in our 20s then, man, Young and full of fun, And wow, man. So we just, upset the apple cart. But what a fun party that was, That's the last time I went as a caveman. We were just talking about it over there on the chat room. Ugg and Dug were getting together with the Big Old Billy Club. We had our primal ways. See, that's part of the story of humanity, part of the history that's been hidden from you, in the long term. I mean, shoot, 6,000 years drop in the bucket. Not even a drop in the bucket. I mean, that's barely even. And what they tell you about those 6,000 years is mostly just pure bullshit. I mean, right out of the can bullshit, dishing it up in big old heaping hoops. And anybody that dares to differ with that, in a geological sense or any other evidentiary way, well, buddy, just get out of the way. You better just bend over, Rover, because we're not going to put up with that shit for a minute. That's the way it's been in the past. So you get this one version of history that's total crock of crap, and then you get, the reality inside of yourself that's in complete contrast to all of that. So we're here revealing to you, that contrast that lives inside of you, because it lives inside of me too. Us being the replicators of one another that we are, the oracles that we be, meaning we can reflect one another back and forth like crazy and just keep amplifying the angelic energy until that's our reality. Yeah, that's what we're all about, don't you see? We're some kind of wonderful and then some, We're some kind of powerful too. But only in the softer parts of ourselves, you see. You feel the strength in the sunrise as it softens, its warmth softens, away all the pains and aches and heartaches and everything else to go with it. You feel the journey of love that you've really undertaken. You start to feel that kind of trickle up from somewhere down right in the middle of everything. The idea that you may not have been, the total jerk-off you thought yourself to be, etc., or you may not have been the Joe Bullets fix that everything went wrong for, etc. I mean, are you starting to feel something that's kind of clearing, something that's kind of clarifying from way down deep inside of that warm feeling in your chest, you see? That's your reality. That's your own story and human history itself coming forward to be seen, acknowledged, and blessed, and be done with, yes. We've extended ourselves far beyond that now, and we needn't live in that space anymore. So anything that exists in a past sense, historically, that may be holding us back or causing us grief or rising up here in this time to, give us a little retrograde energy and fight us a little bit, well, babies, that's just plain flat getting out of the way now, because the heart is melting away the illusion, the very illusion of resistance. Oh, darlings, don't you see? Start out talking about partying, and next thing you know, we healed everything and everyone in the universe momentarily. Wow. Now that you got it, sit back and, send me 25 cents today, so I'll send you a cup of coffee. Well, no, we can't do that for a quarter anymore. It's $2.50 now, isn't it? Shit. You know, when I was a kid, coffee was a nickel in the cafe. Well, some cafes. Most places it was a dime, I gotta admit. And we thought that was really high, because there were places that had good coffee for a nickel, you know. We didn't even know what organic was back then. But most of what we got, I'm sure, pretty much was, because the coffee flavor was so much different in those days than it is in now. Just like a lot of things, it's changed and changed greatly, you see. Our perception of the reality changes right along with it, and that's why these things change. See, it's consistent with constant change. That's what we are. You know, we're always rearranging it. We're always putting it back together. We never quite get to the point of completion, because that'd be pointless. You know, we can live in nirvana. We can live in paradise, you know, right now, because that's where we are. But that doesn't mean you ever step out of the adventure of living. You know, your adventures become far more expansive and far more understandable, and they don't take the darkened colors anymore, because, you know, as we exude into this daylight inside, all the deeply compressed parts of ourselves start decompressing. You see, that's a lot of what you're feeling inside, is a releasing of energies that have been very compacted in your heart area. And these are being enlightened. That's what enlightened means, is to de-densify, to bring the light into the darker places, where the light always resides anyway. They just densify it around it a bunch, but you can't hide the light. The light is the light. Without it, life does not exist, you see. So now this light that's so densified, and we would call it darkness, and has been such a contrary influence here inside of us as persons, and in this reality as an energy, an active energy, of an agent of control, no less, for a long, long time, man. You know, we got to remember now, you go to the bigger perspective, we even created that dynamic for ourselves to experience. So again, you don't want to be pointing fingers, you know, or saying, oh, how awful that person must be, blah, blah, blah. You know, I have faced the sickest and most demented and tormented and angriest being ever was created, you know, and gone down right down its throat in a mystical sense, and found its heart inside, and found tons of light, and brought it back to life, because it could realize its light. You know, it was still glowing, even in glitter, even in the darkness, you know. Well, now all of this decompresses, all of these energies, you know, like the one I faced. Well, I tell you, it was horrifying. When I first went there, when I first stepped into that place, I did not want to be there. This was, you know, badass shit. This was the thing that would kill everyone, and delightfully so. I mean, it was demented and densified. The ultimate dark dragon, you know, and horrifying looking too, and just meaner than shit. I don't know how else to describe it. The meanest thing I ever met. And I realized, even though I was horrified and terrified by my experience with that, as I started to remember it, as I gazed upon its dark, ugly body, you know, that's an aspect of myself. That's my other part in the divine dream of love. That's my extreme difference. That's the other side of my split personality that each human being inhabits in shadowy ways and shadowy forms, yes. None of them near as strong as I have, because, you know, I could do it. Because you guys were in me, helping me through it, you see. And I do the same for you the minute it turns. Because it does change. We take turns at this shit. There ain't no one person that's been, quote, quote, this messiah, or whatever you want to call it, throughout the generations. There's been a myriad of us. We've all played those roles at one point or another, each and every one of us. You would not believe the extensive nature of our experience here already. But you will as you begin to remember it. And that magic morning when you awaken, and everything's different and divine and glowing, you know, it's happening right now inside of you. You know, as this sun comes up, as this warm feeling de-densifies the darkness. Well, in that morning when we all awaken, because a few have awakened, then everyone does. You know, it's just the way it works. And then we'll have the full capacity to experience any moment in our history. We'll remember it all in its totality, not in its narrowed perspective of the 3D densified world. See, we're de-densifying now. That automatically gives us a broader view of everything. It automatically expands us a little more into our creation. so that we can understand it in a more deeply feeling way, you see. It's all pure magic, babies. It's made for us, you know. It's made to give us what we are. It's made and designed by our very selves, by our very own heart, in the beginning of time, and that's why the time is beginning again. See, it's always in motion. Life is an ocean of love. There's a reason why we're fluid inside, you see. The ocean lives. We're the warm side of it. Isn't that awesome, man? We got the balmy breezes going on inside the palm trees and the sandy beaches, babies. And we don't believe in bikinis at all, you know. We like nature. We like creation, and we love our part in it. And we don't feel threatened by anything around us in that balmy environment in our interior person, the one that the sun is beginning to shine upon inside and reveal to us, possibly for the first time in forever. I know I haven't I've carried this stuff forever, but as far as conscious memory of it, it's just coming back to me now. It's part of that unraveling, unwinding. And yeah, because I could face that ultimate darkness, which was to me the most horrifying thing. And then as a soul presence, go through its throat and then down into its heart area, and to embrace that heart and bring it back to life, because it was already light. I mean, you could see the glittery light outside of it. It had some glowing through its scales there on the side of it. You see, there's no such thing as total darkness. There can be, you know. So there it was, and there it became, and there it became like de-densified. I mean, it took me a few days, maybe a few weeks, I don't remember, to get to that place where I could actually get over my horrification and get this energy underway and just calmly slip. And when I realized, and that's when it did, when I realized that that really was another part of myself, the extreme being, man. On the other side, see, you get one, you get the other. That's just the way it is. It's, you know, and because of the oracle nature of my being, that I contain, you know, the stronger energies, because I've got everyone supporting me in it. So therefore I am all of humanity taking these steps with these crazy energies, man, these extreme beings that live inside of us, you know, or see the personifications there of honest to goodness. You know, I now see it for what it truthfully is, a whole big system of thought control. You know, I've even dream control to an extent. You know, everything that could be practiced on it was and has been and would still be had we not woken up to the reality of it, you know, and stepped out of the age of untruthfulness and quit lying to ourselves and started to get it on, because we found the peace inside. Because the sunrise inside gives us a very clear view of where we've been and what we're here to do. You see, and it's sweet, and of course it's simple, and of course it's as real as you can imagine it to be. So we just step forward in this moment in time, embrace that sunlight. Can't burn you, can't harm you in any way. It's you, the sunlight coming alive inside. Yes, indeed. And now you wear it well, babies. Oh, you wear it well. And now we take that ride, you know, all the way across the sky, the journeys that the earth has so longed for in such a long time, the return of the full capacity of her heart, once again, in her children, her grandchildren, us, the one human heart that is in everything, as well as every being and person that lives. You see, all of it's human, babies. All of it's a reflection of our own characteristics. Even the darkest, ugliest, demonic thing you ever did see, you know. I watched this thing transform as the energy of awakening came alive inside of it, you know. And it's, of course, it's still in process, you know. It takes forever, it seems, but yet it's happening so quick it takes my breath away, man. But it's becoming this glittery rainbow energy, man. It'd be rainbows everywhere. As, you know, we de-densify the compacted energies inside of ourselves. It de-densifies from creation. Got to understand, creation is a reflection of us. All the violence we see in the animal world, a way to take our angry energies and act them out innocently, carry us forward, get us through these ugly times. See, it's been a unified effort all along in the animal kingdom and the bird kingdom and the tree kingdom. All of these various forms of life have been consciously aware of their presence in it and have been conducting their share of influence. You know, despite our own incapacitation, our inability to see ourselves as that creation still actively worked with us from a more or less conscious place, but it also reflected our tendencies back to us, had to. So it adopted practices and things that were, you know, as primitive as we were. It goes back to Hugg and Dug, man, you know, and then going underground for a while. There was a time when the unpeaceful passions, and this is probably 1 billion years ago, I don't know, so far back, it's a ways back. But there was a time when, you know, humans became so incapacitated by the passions and emotions that were arising in them, you know, through these practices of genetic rearrangement and thought control that were going on. You see, there were so-called alien races that were here in energetic forms that were largely influencing the human behavior. You know, it was not a beautiful thing. It's another aspect of ourselves we really weren't quite ready to deal with at that time, but yet there it was, and it was as real as anything else could be. So, you know, things really got out of hand. They got violent and crazier than anything you've ever seen in these days, and we've been through some real BS, you know. But because it got so out of hand, there was a determination that had to be damped down and kind of begun over again, you know. And the woman, the divine feminine side of it, it's not just woman, but the divine feminine side of it, so deeply wounded by those moments in time that it chose to remain separate and apart from this creation for a while, and would only return when, you know, the men had done their penance or something like that. Something along those lines happened. You got to understand, we were in a very juvenile place inside of our heart at that time. We were just barely getting used to this stuff. You think you're uncomfortable now inside of this body, you know, in the past. Well, goodness gracious. You should have, you remember what it was like then. See, anything you're feeling now is a reflection of back then. If you have any uncomfortable nature inside of your body, if it's in resistance to you or you're in resistance to it, it's a reflection of something in the way, way back. It's a memory of what happened in those really ugly times. Somebody said, I read an article the other day, 32 times that the geologists now think the Earth is experiencing, you know, so-called advanced civilizations only to see them crumble and fall, and the population dwindled to almost nothing, and stay that way for a few million years and finally start to come back to life. Well, this is one of those times I'm talking about. Oh, Hugg and Dug. Where did the Cro-Magnon come from? These skeletons, you know. And then there's all these legends about alien races being here and enslaving humanity and making mine gold, you know, etc., you know. And there's like even geographic evidence of something like that. Well, something very similar to that did and occur in those times, you know, if you go at it in a timeline way. And there was a time when there was only what you would call male presences here, and they were deeply densified, and they were thick of bone and thick of head and very light on brain. You know, they were meant to be in servitude. And in their heart, gladly so. You know, they felt so bad about the rage that had permeated the reality back then and caused such madness that they were in gladness to be able to serve this way for even a few million years, even if it was, you know, in an abject form of slavery. It didn't matter to life. Life was regenerating itself, and this is what it took. It had, in its own opinion, it had to pay its own penance to itself, so it could understand the nature of these things and get a better grip on them when finally we would start to incarnate again as male and female in more elegant forms instead of the old gorilla-like looking thing, you know. It was hairless though, baby, I can tell you that. It was human. It really was and is, and there's the evidence for it everywhere, you know. And there's genetic material that indicates our relationship to those beings, you see. It's like, it's all scientifically organized nowadays, at least in theory. I don't know how greatly it's been proven, but in theory, that's where they go these days. That's awesome, isn't it? They're catching up, babies. I'm loving it. I'm loving all of it, you see. But there was these times. And see, there's reflections in us, you know, of these times, like I say, in this lifetime now, that we're still acting upon some energies from way back then. You see? This is why we have so many moments come up and different things, and even confrontations with people and things like that are really not understandable in any level. In this human dimension, this 3D, they make no sense at all, but they happen. You know, and so you just got to look at it. Well, you trace it back a bit when you're quieter times, and you start to see that it really is an energy from the past of some sort or another. Sometimes you'll literally live through that experience that created it, so now you can finally have peace about it and release it, because you will see it as you go through it again, not as you did at that time. You'll be more conscious of the divine presence within you and why it is acting through what it's acting through, why this moment has come to you. And then it's a divine blessing, and nothing's a curse, even times like what I'm talking about, when we felt so unblessed that we had to make ourselves down to doo-doo and just be dumb old Cro-Magnon. I mean, you know, you wouldn't believe we lived hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, we just, why die? You know, and so we just hung out, you know, and held that energy. When the old body finally did wear down, you know, we finally did, you know, start to deteriorate a little bit, that's when we started to reincarnate it and bring it back to life, you know, because we'd had enough. We'd gone through our cycles. See, we got used to doing things that way, and now there's a part of us that thinks that's nature, because everything cycles in season and goes through time. You know, say it isn't so, Mama. Say it isn't so, because it ain't. You know, I mean, we did these as our practice and experience in the old baby playpen of life, as we call it. You know, as we were coming to, you know, get a handle on these more primal energies, these passionate feelings. I tell you, man, these fleshly incarnations are relatively new in this reality, you know, and the ability to experience and feel in them, for all of our vast experience here already on that timeline, is just still a beginning, because now we're releasing ourselves where we can truly become exploratory of feeling. You know, and of how it feels to act in motion through a physical presence, you know, totally in unification, however. That's the biggest difference, our divided personality, you know, that's so often personified in cartoonish ways around us, now melds, merges, you know, recognizes itself as the same energy, you see, and that's why we're decompressing, de-densifying inside, because how can we hold such positions of, you know, power when really we're the same being, and we're just totally gathered in this center heart love, you know, and we're just one consciousness learning to express itself, and, you know, quite completely innocently so, that nothing you really have done, you know, can be held against you in any way, or anything that's been done to you can be held against others, or whatever it was, man, you know. And the reason being because you start to recognize that we're just actors in a play, man. We've just been learning. That's why we adopted this dreaming form of it that I call acting, you know, so that we could learn to negotiate ourselves through the real feelings as they began to dawn on us. You see, we had them way back when, and we dropped them at the door when we came down to be human. Down, down, down. You know, in a sense it was down, in a sense parallel. I mean, you know, it was an experience, but we left all of that divine nature, mostly, at the gate when we stepped in, but then our safety valve was death, you know. When we needed to get out and go refresh ourselves, we could. You know, and that was a spiritual thing totally, all the way through it. Most of the time, people weren't aware of the natural progression in living and dying. You know, it's only been in the last few thousand years that people began to wake up to that stuff. I mean, as enlightened as times have been in the past, and I'm talking about Atlantean times and some of the more elegant civilizations before that, those that were universally attached. I mean, we've been to all the planets, all the stars, everywhere that there is to be, we're there. Human has spread itself far and wide across this universe. You're going to start meeting your brothers and sisters pretty soon from everywhere, but they all have an organic base, a root base in the earth, because they expanded forward from these very elegant civilizations that we had, as we call them now. Back then we didn't know what to call it. We just lived and existed, but we had universal travel, you know, and like that, you know. We didn't have to get in a rocket ship or a talk about archaic, or a flying saucer to get somewhere. And we just, took 2 or 3 steps and we were there. We were very malleable. But then, of course, there comes these times of transition like the one I just described to you, involving old Ugg and Dug, and everything changes. And the channels that allowed people to such extensive travel were withdrawn, mainly because of the infection we'd spread out there. Then all those human populations that were left here and there, and they were sparse for the most part, but there were some planets where that's all there was human. But anyway, it's like, wow, they had to take it from there, disconnected from their home planet, no longer able to journey back and forth, now subject to what we saw then as the vast nature of the universe, separated from ourselves, separated from the mother-loving and the mother-loving children that remained here, but the same blood. They all got belly buttons too. They all go back to that original mother. That's the evidence by which you will know. And I reckon when they come, they'll come with their belly buttons exposed, so you'll understand. And hope you won't think of them to be ungracious. They're just letting you know what's real. This is family coming home for a reunion such as we've never seen before. Begun already right there inside of you and me and a whole bunch of others, don't you see? We feel it, we experience it, we're there. No matter what this life throws at us now, we already understand, we're already on the go, and we ain't stopping, no matter what seems to be getting in the way. You won't be able to distract us and say, oh, look over here. Oh, you got to deal with it. Oh, you got to deal with it. No, not this time, baby. The flow is the way to go, and that's where we go. Because all we want to do inside is glow and grow and help everybody else do it too. That's our true nature. We've been so cut off from one another by the built-in cruelty of the old society, It's refreshing then to start to feel some form of unification, isn't it? I mean, it's about blessed time. I was going to say damn time, but I can't damn that time. It's about blessed time, that we done it, that we, allowed ourselves this step forward, this gracious step forward, out of the bullshit reality into the reality of the one love and everything that lives. That quiet moment where the divine harmony is experienced in totality. And that's our moment of right now. And that's you, that's me. Baby, spread them wings. They're magical things. So says Grandpa here on this Coyote Medicine Show on this beautiful old Free Day Friday, baby. Take flight, baby. Right here on the Hazy Radio Network, baby. Ooh, get it on.